declaration of love for all our neighbors. Neighbors, thank you. Thank you for all the kindness and beauty that you are. Thank you, friends.
We're here because we're in a climate emergency, and we're here digitally because we're also in this global pandemic. But the next few weeks, few months will depend on us, will depend on what are we going to ask for as our governments decide how we're going to get out of this economic crisis. What are we going to fight for? Where are we going to put our voices and our words? And if it's writing to elected officials or calling them, there's still a way for you to get involved. The climate revolution doesn't stop with self-isolation. The land that I stand on has been taken care of by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation, as well as the Métis Nation, and many other documented or undocumented nations that cared for this land. It's important also to remember that Indigenous people still live on this land today, on what we call Canada today, and Indigenous people here and around the world are still those that are safeguarding most of the biodiversity that we, I think, as also a climate justice movement, are trying to protect. So we're walking very much in their path. We're inspired and we are supporting their activism first and foremost, because they're the ones that have always been taking care of the water, the air, and the land.
Hojo, Nishnikanagamuni, Nishnikaz, Gokuradam, Karantu Dinjaba, Kamlupa Dinjaba. So just saying greetings in the Ojibwe language, and that my Indigenous name is Medicine Solomon. I'm Owl Clan, and I always mentioned Toronto, which is the original word for Toronto, as where I live now, and Kamloops, and I hope I pronounced that right. Kamloops, British Columbia, which is where I grew up mostly. So that's what I was saying in Anishinaabe and in the Indigenous, in the Ojibwe language. Our water, we know, is really important to us. Water is our first medicine. That's what we're taught, is water is our first medicine. And when you think about that, it's the very first thing that happens before life can happen, right? Because the water breaks before the baby comes. And so we need to take care of our water. We're literally breathing out water, breathing it in. And this whole virus thing right now, with literally our breath infecting people, we can take that and turn it around. If you just even put the word love or gratitude under or around a glass of water, that it would actually physically change the structure of it. You don't even have to think love, just the word itself. So imagine if you're thinking and feeling love and gratitude, just imagine what that does to the breath that's coming out of you, because your breath is full of water. Imagine what that does to you on the inside, because you are water.
The climate crisis is still very much here. Maybe you haven't thought about it in a while. We've had other things on our mind, but it's unprecedented. And honestly, the science is devastating. When you look at it, we're being told we are rushing towards extinction. I have to admit, in the middle of a pandemic, I don't want to think about extinction. So instead, I want to think about what we're going to be asking for and why we're asking for it so strongly and why we're asking for it now. I think it's always important to remember why the youth especially is so angry about this, and why we deserve to be heard, why you deserve to scream on your balcony if that's the only way you can do it now. It's because for decades, people have denied climate change, and the scientists knew and the companies knew, but for decades there was money, billions of dollars that were going into denying this climate crisis. And so we were robbed of our futures. We have to do this fight today because people paid money to lie about it. People put our lives on the line and lied. So if you're feeling kind of angry right now, yeah, I am too. And this is why I'm happy you're here with us. And I'm happy you're gonna take action, more action after. I love to speak to our elected officials or to the people working in government to tell them what they're not doing and tell them what I want them to be doing. It's something we do when we take the megaphone in front of Queen's Park, but it's something we can actually do from home when we don't have that option. It's gonna be as a community that we have to write our Green New Deals and think about them. So let's start right now by talking about the Green New Deal, getting that word out there, understanding what it means, understanding what the climate crisis is going to do in our lives and why we want to fight it so badly.
Youth have been rising up for over a year and demanding societal change. Millions of youth are beginning to understand that we simply must lower our emissions and change our industries. We must adopt solutions like the Green New Deal. It's not an option anymore.
Small towns have an important role in the implementation of a Green New Deal. The grassroots level is where it all begins, and the vast majority of people live in rural communities. Convincing these people is both our biggest challenge and our biggest need. The Green New Deal does not need to be implemented on the national level. There can be provincial Green New Deals and even municipal ones. So I've decided that my next project will be to get the County of Brent to endorse a Green New Deal. We need to mobilize activists in small towns across Canada, but more specifically Ontario right now.
Just transition is where we want workers to be able to move from the tar sands, be able to move from coal mines and transition into jobs that are good for the environment. And that transition is respectable of their living conditions, that it honors, you know, our treaties, but it also honors the human rights of folks. And so that just transition can look like oil workers now trying to take back or reclaim land that was from abandoned oil fields. And the government has already started looking at that. And this opportunity that we have right now, where we see the government taking money and giving it out at $2,000 a month, which is what we needed them to do for years. This is the same opportunity we have to do for all workers to make sure that they're transitioned into a decent job. So, you know, what a just transition should be doing is that it has to invest in jobs, decent work opportunities that reduce sector emissions. It has to also respect the contributions that workers in fossil fuel industries have made to today's, you know, prosperity, quotation marks for some, but retraining and redeployment opportunities, as well as secure pensions for the older workers that may not be on the call, but they're not saying that that's the case. We have to guarantee social protection and human rights. And we have to invest in community renewal to gain hope and trust of regions and townships at the forefront of this energy transition, industrial transformation, and climate impacts. We have to have support and innovation of technology and sharing and enable a rapid transformation of energy and manufacturing companies, along with all of the economic sectors and the involvement of workers and communities in the sectoral plans and transforming of megacities.
Time after time, we, the people, have always been told that there's not enough money. There's not enough of it, whether it's relation to providing free public services to everyone, ensuring everyone has a place to eat, place to live, and a place to eat, ending the exploitation of land and people. It's always been said that the cost is way too high and that we're being unrealistic when we ask for things like a Green New Deal. Yet in light of this pandemic, the government is spending more than $50 billion in the emergency COVID-19 bill. What? Where did this money come from? We can see that there's not a lack of money. It's just a lack of will from the government to fight for the people, and there's never enough money to feed the people. That's what they say. There's never enough money to fund essential services or ensure decent housing or decent work for everyone. There's never enough money to implement a Green New Deal for all that leaves nobody behind. There's always enough money to buy a new pipeline. There's always enough money for the expansion of police, and there's always enough money to protect and serve the white and wealthy. Money is not the issue. It's simply a matter of priority. And it's very clear, crystal clear, especially in this pandemic, whose lives the government values and whose lives they don't care about at all. We see this also with the continuation of work in Wet'suwet'en with the pipeline, and coming through COVID-19, we see that money can in fact be redistributed in society. We have to organize and push the government so that they have no other option than to listen to us and use the money that they do have in order to protect people and listen to what we want and what we need.
Just wanted to remind everybody that we're not just fighting for the future of ourselves, but we're also fighting for the future of all the creation and all the animals and the plants, and they thank us, and it's a reciprocal relationship because they provide us with everything we need, and now we have to return that favor.
It's important to remember that the injustices against Wet'suwet'en and other Indigenous nations are still happening amongst the COVID crisis. CGL is still attempting to displace the Wet'suwet'en people.
Hopefully, when we can go back to our usual protesting, we can go and support the youth that is asking for justice for Wet'suwet'en people. If you're on our website, and I'm sure you are now, fridaysforfutureto.org, you can also sign up to be a volunteer at the bottom. And this is kind of the first action I'm going to ask from you right now, from your homes, is going on our website, signing up to be a volunteer, to have news with us, so that when we are able to go back in the streets, for those of us that want to do that, then we can go massively and ask for the climate justice.
Fridays for Future TO, I think it's TO for Future, or on our Instagram at Fridays for Future, or, you know, as Allie's mentioned many times, I'm going to mention it again, fridaysforfutureto.org. So thanks so much for showing up today. I hope to see you in the future. Hope we can keep building community together. Y'all are a powerful movement. I'm really proud of us. Thanks.
People united
will never be defeated.
The people united
Will never be defeated.
The people united
Will never be defeated.
The people united
Will never be defeated.